This is WZRD Chicago 88.3 FM. And we have with us back Mark Armstrong, journalist and activist. Welcome back, Mark.
Thank you, and you're welcome.
Thank you.
Part
Thank you. Yes. Okay. Let's move on to the more of that comparison between the 1996 DNC and the DNC that we just had.
Well, I got to tell you, having gone, I kind of did like a Gloria Steinem. Remember how Gloria Steinem went undercover as a Playboy bunny
Yes.
to to investigate the Playboy empire? I went undercover as a volunteer, senior volunteer for the host committee for the '96 convention.
Mm,
So I found out what was going on inside. And the host committee was run by a woman who was a socialite and daughter of some famous attorney named Leslie Fox. And Leslie Fox had come over. This was under the administration of the second Daily, right?
mm,
So she had come over from being executive director for the host committee for World Cup '94, the international soccer
mm.
matches, and we were the headquarters were at the Chicago, what they call the Chicago venue. And I have to say, the while the show looked good, well, the show was probably considered better than what was going on at in '96 in terms of content and what was available as far as performers or whatever. The organizing behind the scenes left a lot to be desired. For example, the day they announced, they had already set up a host committee. It was sort of like a what would I call it? Like a vetting committee, I guess, waiting for word. The moment they announced that Chicago got the '96 convention, that thing was up and running and ready to hit the ground. Whereas for the 2024 convention, it took them a while to get an office, to get an organization set up for the host committee, and to get an executive director.
Mhm.
You couldn't even call anybody. It was my experience that you couldn't even call anybody for the 2024 convention until maybe 2 or 3 months
Mm.
after they announced that at the convention.
And why was that?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Why was that? Why did they not have everything in place as in
They want.
1996?
I mean, I will say this for Leslie Fox. She was a witch with a capital B, but she was on it when it came to organizing stuff and having it together.
Mm,
So knowing everything from having stuff set up for press to gift bags for the delegates to spaces worked out at the United Center because it was only the United Center at that time in '96. She was much tighter with that.
mm.
It's sort of like the 2024 host committee was making up as they went along.
Oh.
And my question to this day is, why didn't they have the rafters available for people up there to use, like I reported out of?
Mm.
They only used the floor, the stairs or the seats immediately off the floor, and then the upper deck.
Hmm. Was there enough room without using the rafters?
No, it was awful. I thought, weren't you guys on the convention floor?
We were, but oh, you're talking about this convention or you're talking about the 96 one?
About this convention,
They
'96
were
convention. It's no
they
comparison. The
okay.
logistics were more in control.
Okay, so
And
over here they were not able to use the rafters? This
because I
the
didn't see,
2024?
yeah, I
Oh,
didn't see anybody putting the rafters. The rafters would have been that real dark area above the deck.
oh. Mm,
I don't know if you noticed it, but I'll say so. You got the convention floor where the main delegates were
mm,
at. Then you had the upstairs from that immediately upstairs where some delegates sat,
mm.
and they had unreserved as well as reserved seats. But it got so crowded 2 or 3 weeks ago that they ended up allowing the delegates to take up the reserved seats because I had a seat. I mean, the unreserved seats rather, because I had an unreserved seat, and I got caught outside when I ran to use the men's room
Mm,
because it had gotten so crowded in there that the fire marshal said that nobody else could go in there or he was going to shut the thing down.
mm, right.
So I was out there for I would say 90 minutes,
Hmm. Yeah.
and I saw Blitzer from Wolf Blitzer
Hmm.
and Senator Chuck Schumer come through as I was waiting to get up in there.
Hmm.
And by the time I got there, they had given my seats away to this elderly couple
Hmm.
who weren't in bad shape as I were. And I had to like stand because I had my walking cane with me. I had to stand on the floor and I had to duck and dodge press, everyone from press to delegates to convention staff
Hmm.
and then UC staff. And I almost fell flat on my face a couple of times.
Oh.
And there was this man that kept saying, "Oh, sir, you can't stand here. You can't lean against this. This is not for you." And finally, I just got fed up and I said, "You know what? I'm a 61-year-old man with a partly amputated foot, type 2 diabetes on this big behind cane you're looking at. What the bleep do you want me to do?" And this one white um, convention volunteer or worker said, "Oh, sir, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." I said, "You definitely are sorry." I said, "This is a mess." I said, "This is never like this under Leslie Fox." And so they finally had the members of the Alabama um, delegation escort me upstairs because I still would have fallen flat on my face and probably rolled down the stairs because the use of the United Center is not handicap friendly like that for crowds like that.
Right.
And so they escorted me up to the top of the seats off of the just off of the convention floor,
Hmm.
and didn't bring me the seat that they promised, but that was okay because at least I could lean against the wall or something. And I stayed in that part. I stayed in the convention hall for maybe the first 5 to 10 minutes of Kamala Harris's convention of acceptance speech.
Hmm.
And then I went outside, just outside, and I had sat on this chair I saw. And then one of the UC staff came to get her coat. And I just stood up. I said, "Oh, I apologize. I didn't realize." She said, "Oh, that's all right. Right, honey. You can sit back down there after I get my coat." And while I was there, I ran into William Hall, who's the alderman, Chicago alderman out of the Sixth Ward,
Hmm.
and he's also the chair of the Revenue Committee's. I mean the sorry, the um, Finance Committee's Revenue Committee.
Hmm.
And so I kind of got into it. I mean, I didn't get into an altercation, but I lit into him because I said, I'm still mad at you because he hadn't supported reparations. He wasn't supporting other stuff we needed him to support, like getting a handle on helping city council get a handle on this whole um, illegal immigrant crisis mess. And he responded, "Well, that's all right because I'm everything that you see." And I said, "Well, you could do a lot better on that." So he said, "Well, push me then. Well, push me." I said, "You can count on us doing that and more if you don't do what the bleepity bleep we tell you to do." So he disappeared after that. So
Hmm.
that was part of my activism in journalism, which I reported on at the convention.
In 1996, how did you become a volunteer for the host committee? Did you aim to be that volunteer, or was it just serendipitous?
Well, my plan was to serve out being a volunteer until I got my press credentials because I had applied for my press credentials at the same time
Mhm.
and I had gotten um, several publications to give me an assignment, including URB, and that's URB, not HERB,
Mm.
and The Source, and Illinois Entertainer, and at that time, Rap Pages, which is no more. In
Mm.
fact, URB more as well. Rap Sheet, and was there another one? I think that was basically it. And at that time, I was the first and the only print urban news coverage. And I had hoped to be covering the convention alongside Kevin Powell, who was was one of the first cast of The Real World, and who went on to be a journalist and published author. And he had been working with Vibe. So he had said when he was with Vibe as a political editor that he was planning to cover the convention. But somehow there was a falling out between him and Vibe, and he ended up not going and not no longer being with Vibe magazine.
Mm.
I was
Mhm.
pretty much only game in town as far as urban coverage. There was another publication
By
called
what do you mean when you say what do you mean by urban coverage?
like hip hop magazines,
Mm.
music magazines, magazines that would cater to things like hip hop or
Mhm.
house
Mhm.
kind of culture. So
Mm.
basically, kind of like press that's akin to like let's say a Rolling Stone.
Ah. Mhm. Got
So
it.
I had a combination of national publications like The Source, as well as local regional publications like Illinois Entertainer,
Mhm.
and I reported on everything. I reported on what was going on in the convention. In fact, I was the only one that picked up on this crack that Hillary Clinton made during her speech after she landed in a helicopter or whatever, about people caring more about symbols on their jackets than people's lives.
Mm.
And then Tipper Gore was in her full glory with her hip hop and then some urban music bashing for her parents' resource council, whatever it was called. No, her parents' music resource council is actually what it was,
Mm.
PMRC
Mhm. Mhm.
of that. And
That was
then,
that was
huh?
cracking down on hip hop, trying to make it look evil or what?
Yeah, to make it look evil, to support the narrative of a need to expand the '94 crime bill,
Mhm.
which again was one of the planks in the '96 DNC from the for the party.
Uh-huh. One of the pillars, you mean?
Yeah, well, platform, the
Platform.
plank.
Okay. Hmm.
Platform has planks, right?
Okay.
Or
Hmm.
issue point.
Got
So,
it. Got it.
so the expansion of the '94 crime bill was one of the main planks.
Hmm.
And ironically, under again the lead co-chairmanship of Bobby Rush, who has since in maybe about a couple of years ago uh, expressed remorse for supporting that
Hmm.
because of the number of people who didn't happen to be white, especially blacks and black males, that got locked up under that.
Hmm. Hmm. And that it's still there, and it's what's being done to address that.
And you know, the thing about it was that a lot of the people that were my contemporaries
Mhm.
weren't listening to what I was saying about all that.
So you mean that you saw the crime bill for what it was?
I saw the expansion for what it was. I mean, I saw the initial crime bill for what it was, and I definitely saw what the expansion was, and I reported it in real time to people when I would get out of the session, the different days or sessions. I would tell everybody what was going on. And there was an event, it seems to me, at the Field Museum. No, the Museum of Science and Industry, I want to say. And
Mm-hmm.
I reported that, and people expressed shock, but they didn't do anything about it.
Hmm.
They weren't really listening. This
Right.
time, I was explaining to people and doing an informal polling about reparations because I noticed in the platform, even before I went there on Thursday, that reparations and let alone no Black agenda was included in the party platform.
Mm.
And that Monday, the first day of the convention, I went to a panel discussion. It was supposed to be a so-called people powered policy panel discussion
Mm.
that the public wasn't allowed to ask questions or make comments out at. and it included a sociologist named Ruhan, I can't think her last name, a sociologist professor at Yale University, and then this guy named Warren rather, who's a native Southsider and a progressive economist, who's also an MSNBC commentator.
Mm.
And so Bear introduced the panel by saying that his solution, or partial solution for reparations, was a city-run grocery store and a city-run bank, without explaining how that would create Black wealth.
Mhm.
And then after the meeting broke up, I went over to Dorian and quizzed him further about that. And I was like, well, you all just said that innovation cannot succeed without equity. And I said, I don't see where there's any equity in having these things that a grocery store or a bank that where they can explain how that's going to create Black wealth.
Mm.
And we definitely don't see any equity in wasting $500,000 on a study on
Mm.
reparation. I said we've had too many studies on reparation. We need to start
So
having
what
some.
so what do you think those did you investigate what those studies were for? Were they to line the pockets of some special interest, or were they actual
Well, that's
studies?
exactly what it was. It's a power grab and a money grab.
Mhm.
I
And that
believe that. Go ahead.
yeah,
Yeah, I
that
believe
happens often.
Dorothy Tillman is connected with it. And Dory Tillman, for the longest, they're calling her a sellout now, has said, get this money from this white man and get these contracts from
Mm.
this man or white man. And the study on its face, according to the executive order, number one, tends to talk about in-kind things like this grocery store or public city-run grocery store, city-run bank. And it also talks about, or according to the mayor, that they're going to explore brown reparations.
Mm.
So that kind of brings in somebody who wasn't a descendant of chattel slaves who were freed by the 13th Amendment. And in the Black community that is longing for a Black agenda, we want to know what that has to do with us.
Mm.
Unless that brown person, let's say like a Puerto Rican or a Blaxican, has a descendant or has a parent who's a descendant of chattel slaves
Mm.
that were freed by the 13th Amendment, they shouldn't even be included. Why do we have to share our stuff with everybody else?
Mm.
Other groups that weren't affected by slavery like that,
Right.
on the short end, that is.
So back to those studies that we were talking about, since they seem to be a power grab and a money grab, do you know if those studies were done by uh, white people, or did they have Black people in there as well?
I don't know because this is ongoing. As far as I know, there are a couple of Black people that are involved with it. One, I just named one, the former Alderman Dorothy Tillman or Miss Hatts.
Uh-huh.
Also, former Alderman Roderick Sawyer, who's the son of the former Mayor Eugene Sawyer.
Mm-hmm.
How far they come with that study, I couldn't tell you because it was created by executive order.
Mm-hmm. And so did you report on those various studies that went that really went nowhere?
Yeah, I reported on it so far. I would say that it hasn't gone anywhere yet,
Mm-hmm.
whether it be nowhere or otherwise. So
Mm-hmm.
we're still waiting for the completion of the study, at least the city study, and on. There is outside of city government a sort of an oral history study being done by a group called Black Roots Alliance. And I think their URL is like blackrootsalliance.org. And I would say weeks before the convention, they were doing circuit riding in different libraries and public institutions to record people's views on reparations.
Mm-hmm. So it's
and
an
what they
ongoing study. You don't know. It's still going on, right? Their study.
everyone is still going on.
Mm,
I'm not sure where the Black Alliance has gone, but I do remember one of the heads of it saying that they were going to let the mayor do his own thing with his study,
mm.
and then we're going to collect their research and then fork it over to the mayor to do as he pleases, whether it be as part of his study under executive order or otherwise.
And right now, what is the purpose of their study to find out what's the best way to do the reparations? Who to cover, how to cover?
Yeah, outside of paying up.
Oh, okay, got it.
The main movement for reparations in Illinois, and especially in Chicago, is reparations that pay up and in the studying up.
Mhm.
Because the argument is that there's been too many studies. I think Dick Durbin told us that he had launched the very first ever study of reparations in Congress, I think in 1979, something to that effect.
Mhm.
And you've already interviewed Howard Ray, who's the head of the
Yes,
reran for blacks,
yes.
and his approach for the abortive November 5th referendum ballot was and it was an advisory at the time, was for exempt property taxes and then also payouts for everyone, whether you own property or otherwise, from sales, a percentage of sales tax and user taxes like for taxes on utilities like mobile phone service or what have you.
Mhm.
For Cook County descendants of chattel slaves who were freed by the 13th Amendment. Unfortunately, he didn't have enough signatures to keep it on the ballot,
Mhm.
but he's looking at some other alternatives that we're waiting to discuss. He had scheduled a meeting actually for yesterday and had to cancel it. So
Mhm.
we're waiting for him to tell us when's the next date and what the approach is going to be now.
You mean for the Howard Ray petition?
Right, for the Howard Way petition. And
What
some
about?
of
Okay,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead. What
I was going
other
to
issues are you investigating and covering
in connection with the convention or just in general.
in general?
Okay. Well, we let the cat out the bag about we just recently let the cat out of the bag um about Melanie Spann and this collusion with because we've been reporting heavily on the corruption pipeline, the Democratic Party corruption pipeline um from Springfield to Thornton Township in the village of Thornton that exceeds just buying press. Um, for example, the Illinois Attorney General's office is nothing like it was under Lisa Madigan. And we believe that has a lot to do with the fact that the stuff that involves former State Senator Donnie Trotter, um, with him being not a publicist, a lobbyist for the likes of the village of Thorn of I'm going brain dead now, the village of Dalton rather, and perhaps also Thornton Township are tied into the Attorney General and the Mr. Trotter or former Senator Trotter having been roommates at one time. This pipeline has also been using the same attorney that Thornton Township and the village of Thornton are using. So
When you
Delgado,
Yeah, when you talk
um,
about pipeline, what are you talking about? Are you talking about the special interest money pipeline, or what kind of pipeline are we discussing?
that keep the Democrats in an inordinate power and spread the money to different interest groups, as well as look the other way when interest groups like Tiffany Hayward are doing bad behavior.
Hmm.
For example, I was going to tell you before we broke in on that with your question that Delgado Law Group has been used from by everyone from Tiffany Haynes for Thornton and Township and the village of Dalton down to Springfield by the Speaker of the House,
Mm,
Welch, and has also been used at one time by Cook County government under Tony Preckwinkle.
mm,
I believe those connections, which were worked out by influencers and podcasters and creators alike, we were able through all that the combined those combined efforts, we were able to connect the dots on that.
mm,
We found out through another podcaster that Tony Preckwinkle has been writing checks out of the party for to VON. We've actually seen the checks.
mm. Did you have to FOIA for the FOIA for this information and the checks?
Well, the checks, one of our sources, which I can't give out, um, were actually walking the checks over there and informed us about it
Hmm.
and got us copies of the checks.
The checks are to what again? To the special interest groups or what?
To WBON,
To what?
to WBON,
Oh, oh, okay. To the radio station, you mean?
the radio station, to buy advertising.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So it was like that situation I told you about where you had certain publications that didn't want to report on certain things and look the other way or what have
Right.
you, or one sided, because certain advertisers were subsidizing them
Mhm.
and they didn't want to lose their revenue and ruffle any feathers by going against that.
Mhm. So they were suppressing coverage in order to keep the advertising dollars.
Yep, yep. That's exactly what's going on.
But does
If
that
you,
happen? Does that happen everywhere?
I'm not sure. I think for the sake of propriety, the other news organizations, or I should say, other news organizations, maybe outside the ones they colonized like that, at least give the veneer of being more neutral and not one-sided as it pertains to advertising dollars. But there are biased or news organizations,
Mhm.
whether whether it be because they like um, Tony Preckwinkle's management style or Johnson's management style, that are more skewed toward those persons.
Excuse me, Mark. We have a caller. Maybe a question.
Okay.
Hello, this is Wizard.
Hi, hi, Trudy. This is Brandon.
Oh, hello, Brandon. Uh, uh, yes, I'm. No, you have to. Yeah, it is open, but you have to go through the police station, and I am in the middle of an interview right now. That's okay. All right, thank you. Bye. Uh,
And
Sorry about
another,
that, Mark Armstrong. It was so. Oh, and yeah, you were just continue, please.
yeah, so it really depends on what type of news organization. I would say that Brandon Johnson has all the black press wrapped around his fingers, and I don't consider myself black press out of Shy Guardian, which is my news organization,
Mm,
and the Deep South Press Corps. And it's not because I'm ashamed of being black or what have you, but because the reaction I've been getting from everybody who happens to be black or who doesn't happen to be black. In fact, I've had more people tell me, Mark, I wish you did write for the major report for the major news organizations because I learn more about politics from you than I do from anyone.
So you write about these special interests that that control a lot of things. Let's say, has there been any change after your reporting, and how extensive, how widely received do you know any reaction as a result of your reporting?
Well, I'm
Any
widely received.
investigations that came out of it? Say, let's say.
Well, besides uh the what we reported with Melanie Span Cooper, we've been also finding out how these influencers or creators were bought
You
for the
mean the ones
convention.
that they invited to the DNC? Are you talking about
Yeah,
those?
the one, especially the ones that got credentialed,
Mm.
because see, I didn't get a hard credential because I was a virtual, but I just managed through my resources to get that floor pass that last day. I could have gotten past the security checkpoint um, for the caucuses that occurred at McCormick Place if I didn't have my tripod with me. You know, they invited me there as press, in person press, but they didn't have a special credential set up for that. I had to have like a yellow credential. Did you get a yellow credential when you all went?
I don't think so. No, the long one, no.
No, it was a yellow, it was a short yellow credential. Well, anyway, the short yellow credential, which one of my colleagues, Mario Smith, who does the From the Back Entrance show on WHPK, had a special clearance by the Secret Service for bringing in like tripods and camera equipment and all that.
Oh,
And if you didn't have that, then you couldn't get in. You were considered general public
mm,
without it. And
mm,
so I couldn't get a yellow pass because number one, they didn't think about creating one or issuing one for me. And then two, by the time the clearance of Secret Service credentialing was closed, so they tried to see if they could override and get me a special credential, but they couldn't override the Secret Service's system.
mm. Earlier, you said that they were having meetings, right? And that meeting that you were discussed, was that at McCormick Place? And it wasn't a caucus. What kind of how? So there were
Well,
meetings.
at the okay. So when you went to the McCormick Place, they had something called Palooza.
Oh,
It was sort of like a trade show, basically, political trade show,
mm,
where they had workshops. They had a stage. They had workshops. They had different booths, and they even had performances that were more politically connected. I think
mm,
when I went through, they had like a pom pom squad or something to that effect.
mm,
And then after Lollapalooza, I mean Dimpalooza, when you got to the checkpoint, they had a series of caucuses and councils, as they call them, and other related meetings where the delegates and the public organized around certain issues
mm.
that would
And
eventually.
you were there reporting on these then, right? Or
Yeah,
you just knew about them?
I was there reporting on them actually, or trying
Mm,
to report on them. I
mm.
know that you're familiar with Maxwell Alejandro Frost.
No.
Okay, he's the youngest member of the House of Representatives. He's
Oh,
the Gen Z or millennial elected to Congress, and he's also the only one of the few performing artists because I think Orrin Hatch was or is a published. He's like a published musician, but I'm not aware of any performed music that he's done.
so
But
what state is he from?
he's from Florida. He's from the Orlando area.
Okay.
And he's like the first active artist elected to Congress. I believe that he's also a member of the Hip Hop Power and Justice Task Force, and
And this
they
task force is based where?
it's in Washington D.C. It's kind of I say it would be a I would describe it as being akin to a hip hop caucus, maybe.
What about your NFP, your urban Commonwealth? Is that and also is that also a hip hop organization like Matthew
Well, there's a
Ford process?
that's part of now called Illiana Union. Let me explain.
Mm,
So the QFAC
Yes.
had turned in last as of last month, we turned a decade old.
Uh, Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. And when we first interviewed with you, I think was that 2017 when we had my former producer Torrance Smith talk
Right.
about Birds of View production.
Yes.
Um, we had had some early successes with getting rollbacks on amusement taxes.
Oh, yes.
So the small venue uh, performances don't have to pay any amusement tax.
Mm.
And we'd also sunk the flavored beverage tax
Yes.
after they passed it over our objections. And both of those, if that
That's
hadn't happened, they
that's how we
that
met
the
you.
yeah, that's how you met me. If that hadn't happened, in fact, you and can I say Bill Morton's name?
Let's not,
Okay.
because he
Well,
is a wizard as well.
you and the head of your Chamber of Commerce were part of that as well, at least on the flavored beverage tax.
Mm.
Um, if we hadn't made that happen, that would have meant less money for performing artists in the nightclubs, and the club staff that support them take home less money out the door and off the bar
Right.
because of the unmanageable prices.
Mm.
Then we have gotten events, groundbreaking events in the Cook County Forest Preserves. For example, we got the money and organized for the first hip hop pavilion at a Cook County Forest Preserve event at the Teen Exploration Day program. Um, at another Teen Exploration Day, and that had like beatboxers and rappers and a DJ. And then we did a subsequent one another year where we brought.
For QFAC, what would you say is the most significant accomplishment for QFAC?
I would say besides sinking of those taxes, uh, we just did last year a the very first jury hip hop Olympics. We actually
Mhm.
had judges as opposed to letting the crowd decide, and we had a whole system worked out if there were a dispute among the judges,
Oh,
where if I think we said something like three-fifths of the crowd objected, then it would go to like a grand jury or a grand like a sort of an appellate court or Supreme Court
oh, mhm.
of judges. And we had competitions, jury competitions, judge competitions in the five elements of hip hop.
Mm.
And we actually ended up with a quintathlon winner. That's what we called it if you completed all five competitions,
Mm.
who went under the rap name of Trey is Dope. His real name was Hoyle David Marshall.
Uh-huh.
And he was in school. He was like months away from getting his degree from Illinois Media School.
Uh-huh.
And he unfortunately got killed in a hit and run homicide in January in January at the intersection of 95th and Union Street, or Union Avenue rather, when he was headed toward his father's home where he's living at the time. He was 35 and he had his whole life ahead of him. He was planning to go into podcasting and internet broadcasting. He had planned to get involved in activism himself, and a stolen gray Durango ended all that.
Wow.
And I don't know how they're going to catch the assailants or
Mm.
assailant one person because they found the vehicle involved in the south suburbs torched,
Mhm.
and that's kind of a gang thing to burn off the fingerprints.
Evidence.
So
Mhm.
off of a CTA bus and crossing the street, he probably should have waited until the bus cleared. And as he was sticking his head out, he didn't know what hit him. It just hit him. And the story I've heard was that one of the people in the bus got out and cradled him in their arms, and he died there in their arms. And I'm told that he had some very um, iconic pictures in his phone, but you can't access them because his phone got messed up when he got hit.
Mm.
So in any case, a lot of what we do also include getting resolutions for various events, institutions, and people.
Mm.
So this month, the city council on the 18th, and then the Cook County Board of Commissioners on their consent calendar on the 19th are going to adopt um, resolutions celebrating his life,
Uh-huh.
because we'd already have a resolution sponsored by the late Dennis Deere, who died of complications from a medical condition that he had an operation for,
Mhm.
to establish Cook County Urban Fine Arts Month. I would say about 8 years ago, 8, 9 years ago.
Mm.
And this time he also sponsored a resolution last year recognizing the Hip Hop Olympics. And so this year, um, Stanley Moore, this month, Commissioner Stanley Moore, whose district the Olympics occurred in,
Mm.
and where Trey is dope won those medals, because we had like an actual medal named after one of the groundbreaking pioneers of Chicago hip hop, Huey Fresh, also known as Parker Lee, whose mother was one of the judges. His mother, Flora Koppel,
Oh,
is a homeless youth advocate who you've already interviewed.
yes.
Um,
Mhm.
I'm going to sponsor those two resolutions for Trey. And as
That's it.
part and let me get this through before you ask your question. And as part and parcel of that, um, Kimberly Marshall, his mother, a retired police officer, is not only going to push for a resurrection of the Cook County Hip Hop Olympics, because I didn't do it this year, and I was really contemplating not doing it again because I had so much of a hassle out of doing it with the Cook County Forest Preserve District. But she's also agitating and petitioning with the city Chicago City Council to establish a pedestrian traffic safety bill of rights in his memory.
Mhm.
So two things in his memory. Also, just to make sure, I just mentioned it, but just to make sure that it didn't get by anybody, one of our biggest accomplishments was also getting Cook County Urban Fine Arts Month established, so that it wouldn't just be about hip hop, which there's already a Chicago Hip Hop Heritage Month in July, but we wanted to also include and honor the political accomplishments on behalf of the other constituencies, as we call them, whether it be reggae, house, which we're celebrating the 40th anniversary of now.
And what month is
Uh,
that? What?
August,
Okay.
that was last in August, all August.
For the QFAC for Chicago Urban Fine Arts Commonwealth. Why did you change it to Ileana Union to widen
Well,
its reach?
we have a union as an umbrella organization. So let me explain how Ileana Unit came about. So I have some longtime friends that I knew since I reported back at the source in the Indianapolis area. And I was rather disturbed by this exchange that was going on over my Indianapolis counterpart, having this. He had gotten a resolution through for National Hip Hop Month in honor of the DJs. And there were people that were having a dispute about the DJs that they honored. They were saying, well, they should have included this person, they should have included that person. And it kind of got to the point that it got a little racial. And on top of that, I was saying that, well, number one, my only criticism I had was, why not include the entire scene? You know, the breakers, the graph artists, the knowledge people, and otherwise in addition to the DJs. And I said, and second of all, that doesn't preclude you all from getting a resolution to include the entire scene and name the people that you think is important. So I talked with a guy named Dante Moore, who's a DJ out of Indianapolis, or one of the lead DJs, who, along with my friend Alan Roberts, who goes by the DJ name of Top Speed, I sort of organized with them to have Iliana to create Iliana Union so that we could help each other on a regional basis as
In
far as
Illinois and Indiana, you mean?
correct, correct, correct. That's how Iliana came about. And at first it was going to be more of a Chicago Indianapolis alliance, but now we decided that it would include as much as Indiana that I mean as much as Illinois that wants to be involved beyond the greater Chicagoland region,
Mm.
and as much Indiana wants to be involved beyond greater Indianapolis.
Mm.
So we've had a few other people express interest in the Iliana Union, including some Zulus down in Fort Wayne.
Mm.
In fact, I think one of those Zulus, whose name is Nelson Seda, Nelson Dutch Seda rather, is up for an interview in November, day
Right.
after my birthday, actually, to discuss the struggles of veterans in
Mm.
hip and
Yeah.
other urban arts.
Well, Mark Armstrong, we are out of time. Again, thank you so much for joining us. And for our listeners that uh, if they want to contact you and ask you more about your work and your journalistic history, how should they contact you?
Yeah, again, Citizen King 773 at yahoo.com. So that's CITIZEN KING 773 at yahoo.com. I kind of want to refrain of giving out my number because I don't want anybody named Mama showing up my
Mhm.
voicemail
Of
or
course.
my text or what have you. I'm
Mhm.
trying to, we have a Facebook page up as well for QFAC, but I don't have immediate access to it right now because one of my phones burnt out. And so it sent me to one of my other accounts when my phones would either end up missing or got stolen.
Mhm.
So I'm thinking of creating a new QFAC Iliana page
Mhm.
for that. So be on the lookout for that because it's sorely needed.
Okay, good luck with that. And we know about how difficult it is to in the Facebook for people who get hacked or people who lose their phones or are not able to complete the two-factor authentication as before.
Yeah, and they can find out about the Iliana agenda, which we put together to meet as far as policy initiatives that we are going to send to the Democratic National Committee as well as the Republican National Committee. So I know you don't have enough time for me to go into that, but I can
But
tell them about that as well.
okay, if they email you, you mean, or could they go to a website or somewhere with that to look for that information about the Ileana Union?
If they go to the Facebook page after we get it up,
Okay,
they can ask about it, and we can
okay,
forward it to you by email.
okay, sounds good. When you have the Facebook page, just send it to us, and we'll include it in the video of this interview. Thank you so much, Mark Armstrong.
Okay, you're very welcome.